Every Drithani on Station Keth 4 could read the microtremors vibrating through their root fibers. They felt the low hum of the atmospheric processors, the sharp clatter of dropped hydrospanners, and the rhythmic thump of heartbeats echoing down into the deck plating. At 0400, junior medical archivist Yemsha pressed her primary sensory tendrils against the cold industrial grating of Medical Bay 3. A new vibration was moving through Corridor 7 on Deck 12. It was a human heartbeat, hammering at a violent, sustained 167 beats per minute. Not running, walking. Most biologicals experiencing that level of cardiovascular stress would be in a frantic, erratic sprint. The tremor pattern coming through the floorboards was entirely different. It was heavy, deliberate, and perfectly spaced. A slow, rhythmic march carrying a localized storm of adrenaline straight down into the station's lower levels. I will be honest with you. What Yemsha felt vibrating through those floorboards that cycle changed how this entire sector views human biology. Yemsha pulled herself up to the primary diagnostic terminal and isolated the biometric frequency. The station's registry matched the tremor instantly. Chief Engineer Damon Achabe. His maintenance shift was not scheduled to begin for another 3 hours. She pulled his medical file. Achabe's resting heart rate was a steady 62. The 167 beats registering on her console was a cardiovascular state strictly consistent with pre-combat adrenal flooding. Yet Sector 12 held no combat zones. He was walking directly toward Quarantine Block C. Yemsha's root fibers tightened against the cold metal floor. Block C was where the Herscher Protocol Authority, Warden Kulvex, had been holding Achabe's 4-year-old son, Kofi, for the past 11 days. A routine scan had flagged the human child for anomalous biological markers. Yemsha knew the truth behind those markers. They were standard human childhood immune responses, just antibodies fighting common earth infections the boy had already survived. The first tremor of metal striking metal echoed up through the station's structural supports. Achabe had reached Blast Door 1, the primary access lock for the quarantine zone. Yemsha watched the security telemetry flare on her screen. The automated door system protested with a synthesized warning about unauthorized access to a restricted medical tier. Achabe did not speak a single word to the intercom. He simply entered his engineering override sequence. The heavy bulkheads retracted with a pneumatic hiss. Every Drithani residing on Deck 12 felt the subtle shift in the floor vibrations as Achabe stepped over the threshold. His heart rate had not fluctuated by a single digit. Steady. He reached Blast Door 2. This seal required biometric clearance, hardwired to lock out unauthorized biologicals. Yemsha accessed the corridor's visual feed. She watched the structural systems specialist drop to one knee. His hands were broad, the knuckles permanently darkened by ingrained engine oil that never fully washed out of the skin creases. Those heavy, oil-stained hands pulled a maintenance panel off the bulkhead and rewired the biometric reader using 3 simple tools from his belt. Took him exactly 90 seconds. The second door opened. Yemsha's auditory receptors clicked rapidly in alarm. She opened a direct communication line to the Central Quarantine Authority. Warden Kulvex needed to know that a human engineer was currently breaching the lower decks, walking with the terrifying, measured pace of a species preparing to dismantle whatever stood in its way. Blast Door 3 stood at the end of the junction. 4 armed Herscher guards waited in rigid formation, their chitinous plating locked down for riot suppression. Achabe did not slow his pace. He stopped only when he was within striking distance of their kinetic rifles. Reaching into his pocket, he withdrew a folded piece of paper. It was the crumpled crayon drawing he had retrieved from a waste bin days ago. He held it up under the harsh corridor lights. He told them his son had drawn it on day 1, that it showed a father fixing the station that kept them all alive, and that he would like to go get him now. No guard moved toward him. No guard moved away. They simply watched the human walk between them, yielding the corridor entirely to his slow, rhythmic march. He bypassed the 4th seal in 40 seconds. Yemsha tracked the vibrations from the medical bay, analyzing the profound stability of his physiological state. This was not a sudden escalation of rage. He had decided this exact number 11 days ago, when Junior Medic Tessic first warned him his son was hungry. At the fifth hardened quarantine seal, Achebe sat heavily on the floor to wire a bypass from underneath the mechanism. Through the thick metal plating, a faint sound bled into the corridor. It was Kofi Achebe, crying in small, exhausted, hollowed-out sobs. The tremor pattern shifted immediately. The human heart rate plummeted from a sustained 167 down to 58 beats per minute. Below his normal resting rate, he heard his child's pain. His biological core went absolutely cold. Blast Door 6 was the final containment barrier. Warden Kulvex waited there personally alongside 8 armed guards, with full biological lockdown protocols actively engaged. As Achebe approached the reinforced glass, he looked through the viewport directly into the holding cell. The reality of the extended hold materialized in the nutritional data log streaming across Yemsha's terminal. A perfectly sterile, mathematically precise square of gray Hershey nutrient paste sat untouched on a tray next to a starving human child whose ribs pressed visibly against his thin shirt, confirming the warden had rigidly restricted a growing boy to 400 calories a day to force an impossible biological normalization. Which meant the scanners were right, and Kulvex was entirely wrong. The Hershey machines had merely detected active childhood antibodies fighting off past Earth infections, but protocol demanded indefinite detention until the signatures vanished entirely. Warden Kulvex puffed out his chest plates and began loudly citing the penal codes regarding unauthorized entry. Achebe interrupted him. "I built your air system. Open the door or I'll dismantle it." 12 words. Kulvex looked up at the heavy engineering conduits suspended above his head, suddenly acutely aware that every single one of the 11,400 life support systems on the station had been installed and maintained by the man standing in front of him. The warden signaled his guards. The heavy door hissed open. Achebe walked inside, picked up his dangerously underweight son, and carried him out through all 6 breech doors without a single guard daring to intervene. Yemsha finalized her medical report later that cycle. She documented 0 physical contact, 0 deployed weapons, and a recovery time of 9 days for the child. The quarantine block was permanently decommissioned. 3 weeks later, Yemsha walked past the open door of the engineering quarters on Deck 8. Kofi was safely asleep on the bottom bunk, curled tightly against his father's side. The smoothed, torn crayon drawing was taped to the bulkhead directly above them. Damon Achebe read a maintenance report in the quiet light, his heartbeat vibrating through the floor fibers at a steady, resting 61.